guys, welcome back. This is Daniel Pinheiro from danielpm1982.com, and now we'll continue with our course about IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate and how you can install, configure it, as well as test it by creating some basic Java application projects using all integrated technologies. So this is the first project we implemented. Here is the data model of the project. Here is the relational model. And on the next lectures, we implemented also the model classes for managing the data at our Java application site regarding that relational model. And as I've said on the last lectures, along with the next lectures, we'll simply evolve this project, for example, by creating a Maven application and implementing this database, as well as creating the other classes, for example, the DAO classes for exchanging the data between our model classes and the database tables. But before we evolve this project further, I'd like in this video to show you the basic features of IntelliJ itself. So on this video, I'll show you the basic actions or the basic menu features that IntelliJ offers for you to develop your project. After all, this video is mainly about IntelliJ, so I at least have to show you where all those main features are available for you to configure the way you like or the way you need them. So let's start here with the File menu. Here you can create a new project, and then you can choose from whatever inbuilt framework or architecture you want. For example, on our first lectures, we've simply created a console SE Java application by selecting this option here. On the next example, we'll create a Maven one, and on the next examples we'll create a Spring through this Spring Initializer inbuilt option here, and also from that we'll create a web service example extending that Spring application. But before that, let me show you the other options. You can also choose to create a new project from existing sources by selecting any saved project you have. You can also choose to create a new project from your version control system, for example, from GitHub. I'll show you how to synchronize Git in GitHub. And you can also create direct file types through this new submenu. So of course, you can also open a project, an existing project at your workspace through the Open option. You can here open the recent project you've just managed. You can close a project here and select to open a new one. For example, if you close, it goes to the main window of IntelliJ, and then you can open here the last project you've managed. And here we have two submenus for settings. The first one is for the general settings of IntelliJ, which are applied to all the projects. And the other one, which is the project structure one, are the configurations specifically for the current project we are managing. So you have a lot of options here at the settings, general options, but you also have specific project options for the current project by using this project structure submenu. You also have the Save All option with the Ctrl S shortcut, but actually IntelliJ saves automatically, so you don't have to use this on IntelliJ, differently from Eclipse or other IDEs. You also have this option, invalidate caches and restart, through which you can clear the IntelliJ cache, and for that you first invalidate and then you restart, so the cache data only is cleared when you restart the application after invalidating. You can also invalidate, but it will only clear when you restart manually, or you can just restart without invalidating, but the most useful option here would be this one, invalidate and restart, and through that we would clear our IntelliJ cache and solve any cache related problem we had. Also, you can import or export IntelliJ settings. You can also set the default project settings for all new applications you create through the File New menu. In here you can exit the IntelliJ software. If you only wanna close the project, you choose this option here, close project, but if you wanna close IntelliJ, you choose this other one, exit. So now at the edit, you have basic edit options as undo or redo, cut, paste, delete. You also have this find and find usages. I'll show you how to use this option here, find usages, when I start showing you how to search for specific classes or files or regular expressions throughout your project, and also how to find out where a certain class or method is being used at other classes. But let me show you the rest of the menus. In here you have the view, and at the view you have the tool windows, where you can select the windows you want to open, but it's better to simply click to open and click again to collapse. But in case the window tab here disappears, you can simply go to the view, tool window, and select again, and it will reappear at the proper place, on the left border or on the bottom border or on the right border. For example, database and Maven by default appears here on the right. The terminal and the run will appear down below, and the favorites, the structure, and the project will appear here on the left side. So other than that, at the view menu you also have the appearance option, through which you can enter the presentation mode. For example, let me open here the main class. Suppose we want to show this code in a presentation mode. You can go here, view, appearance, enter presentation mode, and then you have the presentation. For getting out the presentation mode, just go again here at the view and choose appearance, exit presentation mode. For maximizing, for example, the tab of the editor, you can just double click and double click again to restore. What else? You can also go full screen or Zen mode. You can also here select the bars you want to show. In here at the view compare with, you can compare any two different codes you want. For example, different versions of the same classes, one in a previous state and the other on the current state, for example. And we'll try that when we integrate our application with Git. I'll show you how to compare different commit states. But other than that, you can also compare different codes from whatever classes you have. For example, If I want to compare the main we have here with some other main class of another project or with this same main class, we just select the compare with, and then we search for the other class we want to compare to and open both. So in this case it's the same class at the same state. It won't have any changes from one to another, but it actually says here no differences between those two. But if you have any difference between the two classes you're comparing, it will be highlighted the difference of one class compared to another and vice versa. And for the view, it's basically that. Now the navigate, this option here, search everywhere, is very useful. You can search the classes or files everywhere on the project, and I'll show you it next when we start seeing all the options for searching specific parts of code or classes or methods and their use throughout the code. You also can see here the file structure of a class or a file, the file path, the type hierarchy, the method hierarchy, and the call hierarchy. I'll show you all of them in a moment. Here on the code menu you have the options to override, to implement abstract methods, to generate the constructors or accessor methods, or to string or equal and hash code methods. Here you have the option for code completion. Here you have the option to surround a certain code with some other code, for example with try-catch and all of that. Here you have the folding options for expanding or collapsing. Here you have the reformat code, the auto indent lines. Here you have the optimize imports, through which you can ask IntelliJ to clear all the unused imports you might have on a certain class. Here you can rearrange the code, and that's basically it. So every time that you have a menu option that's inactivate, the reason is because the selection you've done, for example, of the class, does not allow that action to occur. So when it doesn't make sense for an action or a menu option to occur or to be selected, it simply gets inactive. So for example, if we go here to the client class and we go here to any method, let's say the toString method, and we select with the cursor on it, then we have some options activated. Actually, almost all the options will be activated. Why? Because we've now selected a method inside the class and not simply the class file. So for selecting an option from the menu, you first gotta go to a place where that option can occur and have activated all the options that can occur over that selected part of code you've selected right before. So for example, we can collapse here the toString, or we can expand it. Also you can collapse and expand here with the plus button here on the left. You can expand and you can collapse that part of code, in this case a method. You can also choose to expand all or collapse all. So all the methods will be collapsed or expanded, and that's basically it. So here at the analyze option, you can inspect the code and look for any error. You have the code cleanup. You can look for the dependencies for that code. Here at the refactor, you have a lot of nice options to use. For example, you can rename the file and refactor that name everywhere it's been used before. You can move and copy classes. You can find and replace code duplicates. In here at the extract, you can extract, for example, any expression or value to a separate variable, to a constant, to a field, to a parameter, to a separate method. So let's try this one. For example here, in case I want to refactor this command line to a new method outside the main method, but inside the same class, I can simply select this line, go to the refactor menu, extract to a new method, and here you set the visibility of the method. It can be private. Then you set the name, for example, print all or print data structure. As the parameter, we will receive only the list. And this is a preview of the method, private static void print all, and as parameter the list structure. So you then press refactor and IntelliJ will create that new method with that original line extracted to it, and where that line was before, IntelliJ puts the calling for that new method, passing as argument the, in this case, the other item list. So here we create the list for the other items, and here we call the print all method at the same class, passing the data structure, and inside that new created method will iterate that list through a string, filtering the other items for client 1, and then we'll print out the toString method for each other item for client 1. And just correcting what I've said on the last lecture, this is a Lambda expression type called not reference method but method reference. You have the lambdas, which are simply equivalent to the implementation of a functional interface for that operator to use over that stream of items. And you also, other than the lambda expressions, you have method references and constructor references. So the name of this type of expression is method reference and not reference method. And we can also here extract all this code to another method that I'll call populate. It will be also a private method that will return the list of other items after the instantiation and the adding of that to the list. It will simply return that list for being passed to the print all method. So at the populate method, I'll just clear these spaces here, we don't need them. Okay, so you can see that our main method of our main class now is much more concise. We have simply the system out hello world. We have the calling of the populate method, and we have also the calling of the print all, passing as argument the result list from that populate method. So have in mind that this is simply a console application. That's why you have the main method here. But in a web application, for example, this main would be the controller class. And at a controller class, you shouldn't have much logic inside. A controller class is simply to direct the request from the clients of that application to the right classes to process, and then get back the result to the web view, for example, or the result from the web service. So you could do this refactor also if you were using a controller class for not leaving any logic inside it. And you could also put that other methods inside another class, for example, inside two helper classes, one for populating that sample data, and other simply to print. But when we start creating web applications, we have the controller class, and from that controller we'll simply call the interfaces of the DAOs classes, which will connect to the database and send or retrieve data from it, so that at the controller also you will have not much logic involved, only the direction of the request and response flux. But here we can let these two methods as examples of how to extract to a method. And also here we can extract this hello world to a constant. It's also a bad practice to put values inside your code. So you should always have some constants for those values, either at structuring files as YAML files, or at JSON files, or at TXT files, or at least on a constant inside your class. So let's extract this value here to a variable, extract actually to a constant. You reset the name of the constant as simply hello. So here it creates the hello constant, associates that with the string value we had, and here at where the hello world string value was, it simply sets the hello constant as the argument. So the output stream will print that constant whose value is the original hello world we had before. And with this you favor the reuse of the code, because you can simply change the value here, and wherever that constant is used you won't have to change at those other places. You simply change here at the constant. Or as I said, you would simply change a TXT or YAML or JSON file which you were importing that constant value from. But in this case we are setting the value here directly to that variable. We could also extract to an interface. For example, here for the client class we could extract parts of the code, for example the methods, to an interface, a client interface. For example, we put the caret or the cursor here inside the class or over the class name, and we choose here refactor, extract interface. Here we set the interface name, client interface. Here we set the package. The package could be the same or not. I'll put here the same package. And now we select the methods we want the interface to have as abstract. For example, the assessor methods. And now you choose here to refactor and create the interface with those settings. And here you have the client interface. So this is just a demonstration. I'll not even use that. As you see here, IntelliJ already refactors also the implementation of that interface by the class, which we set the interface to be created from, but I'll not use that interface, so I'll just delete and also delete the interface as well. And I also have to delete this override annotation here that IntelliJ has added because of the interface creation. I'll just let the override to the toString equals and hash code. So basically that's it for the refactor. You can also encapsulate fields, generify, and so on. So here on the next option, the build menu, you can build the project for then executing it. You can recompile it. Basically that's it. And when you set here to run, it will run the compiled project you have here at the out. For example, here out production project 1 con Daniel PM 1982 main.class is the compiled version for this main Java class here. So here you have the Java code, and here you have the compiled code for the JVM2 process. So you can rebuild the project and recompile it, and you can run or debug that code here at the run option. For example, let me collapse here and go to the source main run main. Through that you will run this main class. Actually you will run the compiled version of that here at the out folder. Here you have, and you can also debug that project. So for run it's basically it. You also have the tools here for the integration with Kotlin, for Groovy, and for other APIs. Here at the window you basically can change from one open project to another one in case you have opened more than one project. And at the help menu you have some help tutorials, help documentation about the IntelliJ IDE. Here you have a key map reference, which is basically a picture about all the key maps you have, at least the main shortcuts you have to use from your keyboard directly without using touchpad or mouse. And actually I'll show you how to choose your key map from different custom key maps. You have the productivity guide that analyzes all you use in terms of productivity. You have the contact support. You have some diagnostic tools. You have the custom VM options that we've already shown you before. You have the register option for you to register your IntelliJ version with any license you have. You can check here for updates, although in this case the updates are automatic because this IntelliJ version is a snap version. It will automatically update itself. And you have the about information for that IntelliJ software. And now the last option here at the menu that I have to show you is the version control system option. For example, here at the local history you can show all the history for your classes locally inside IntelliJ, all the changes you've made and the comparisons between the current and the last states You can see here that the changes are overlaid. For example, we had this hello world at the main, and then we extracted that to a hello constant variable here. You can maximize here to see better. And have in mind here that this is an internal history of IntelliJ. It's not even Git. We have not yet configured Git yet, but it's similar to that. Here, this option, Enable Version Control Integration, is basically for you to enable Git or any other version control system. Here at the VCS option, you also have the option to clone a project from GitHub. Here you have the option to create a local Git repository. You also can create a repository at GitHub, for example, and then start pushing your local repository commits to that remote repository at GitHub. And that's basically it. When we start synchronizing Git, you'll see that many other options from Git will appear here after we enable and configure the Git from my GitHub account. And for that, of course, you must have a GitHub account. But what I want to do now is to show you here at the file settings, the basic settings we have. For example, here, appearance and behavior. We can change the theme. You can even install any other theme from the plugins. I'll show you next, but here the themes we have by default is the IntelliJ Light or the Darkular or the High Contrast. So you just select that and press OK, and that will be changed. Here you can change the font, the size of the font you're using, basically here at the project structure, for example. And you have some other options, the presentation mode, font size. Here you have some managing of the menus and toolbars. Here you have some basic system settings. You'll not use that. Here you have the color manager. And then you have the file colors, the scopes, the notifications configuration, the quick lists, and the path variable configuration. Here, very important, if you like to use shortcuts, is the key map. For example, we have a list of default options for the key map. I'm using the GNOME, but you can change to other key maps configuration, or you can download a plugin for another key map shortcut configuration and set that as your key map. Here at the editor, you have some general configurations. You have the font. We have changed this font size at the beginning of the first video, and I have set the size to 20, but you can set that to whatever size you want. And here you have the preview. Here we have the color scheme configurations and a lot of customizations to do regarding color. Here, for example, you have the console font, not only the colors but also the font. If you want to reduce specifically the console font here, you gotta change it here at the color scheme, console font, and here on the size. And for colors, you have a lot of customizations you can do. I generally don't change that. Here you have the code style and some configurations or customizations for it. You also have the inspections, define code templates, the file encodings, the live templates, file types, and so on. So this is the editor section. Now the plugins, if you want to download any plugin from JetBrains Marketplace, when set here plugins, you have two options here. You have the installed section, where you have all the plugins already installed at your IntelliJ. You can see there are a lot of plugins installed by default, at least on this ultimate version. But you have the marketplace, where you have some sections, for example, the featured section, the news and updated section, the top download section, and the top rated section. And for opening the whole section, you gotta click here, show all. For example, if I wanted to see all the featured section, I would have to click here. It's not only these plugins that are available. To see all the plugins, you gotta select here, show all, and it will show all the plugins available at that featured section. And for installing, you just click here, install, and it will install, and eventually it will ask for restarting the application. Here at the new and updated, you also have a lot of plugins. Here at the top, downloads as well, and here also at the top, rated, a lot of other plugins. And in case you have the name of a certain plugin you want, you can simply type here the name. For example, type Spring, and it will search for all the Spring plugins available at the marketplace, and you can choose any of them to install. And as you see, some are paid versions, but almost all are free for you to get and add to your default installation and have access to other features or actions not available by default. Now we have the version control configuration option with a lot of customizations to do. Here is your GitHub account. I'll delete that. I'll then add it later for you to see how to add. Okay, that's for the version control. Here you have all the build, execution and deployment options you can change for Maven, for the compiler. For example, here at the Java compiler, instead of we set for the IntelliJ general settings a specific JDK version, we can set here same as language level, and for each project, for example, for this project, we've set initially the JDK 14, so it will use the Java compiler for that JDK set for each project. So you don't have to change this, and you can generalize this configuration to use whichever JDK each project uses. And based on that, IntelliJ will use the respective Java compiler. Annotation processors, validations, RMI, Groovy compiler, Kotlin compiler, Android compiler, and so on. Here you have the deployment options, the Android options, the Docker options, the Java profile options, and that's it. So next, the languages and frameworks for JavaScript, for play configuration, schemas and GTDs, for XML, some minor configurations for Spring and Springboot, SQL configurations as dialects, and we'll seldomly change that. So, and here you have the tools, the web browsers, the external tools, terminal, database, and the next project we'll add MySQL as a database source. Here is the diff and merge configurations. Web services and so on. So these are the properties for the whole IntelliJ software. And now let's see the properties or settings for the project itself. So here are the settings for the whole IntelliJ, and here are the settings for this project. So as you open that, you can see here the project name. Let's actually change this project name for IntelliJ Demo 1. And here you have the SDK that we set when we chose to create this project. We then set the JDK we wanted to use. And here, in case we want to change that, for example, if we wanted to change the JDK to Java 8, we would just select here. But I'll just leave as the JDK 14. You can also add a JDK from any other place. These are the detected SDKs, in this case the JDKs, but in case it didn't detect your JDK, you could add it manually by selecting here, add JDK, and select JDK, and it would ask you to point out where that JDK is located. In here we have the project language, which for the JDK 14 we can set as the SDK default, but in case we wanted to use that JDK and choose another language level, for example Java 8, we will just change that here. But for most of your needs, you will just select here the JDK 14 and the language level also 14. And remember that at the general IntelliJ settings and at the Java compiler, we set to use the project language level. So the project language level is this one. That's why in our case and for our project, the Java compiler will also be the JDK 14 Java C. Here is the output folder. By default, it's the out folder here, but you can change that to wherever place or name you want. Here you have the modules. For each module, you can add or delete any module, but for this automatically generated module, you can set the sources, you can set the paths, as well as all the dependencies, which in the case of our project here, the only dependency we have is the JDK 14. But when we create the next project with Maven, you'll see that we will import some other dependencies and they will appear here. Here you have the libraries. You can add any number of libraries here from Java GREs, for example, or from Maven or from Kotlin. Here you can add some facets, for example, JPA or Hibernate facets, EJB, AspectJ, Android, Kotlin, Spring facet, struts, or web facet. And you can also delete any facet that you don't want to use anymore. Here we have the SDK's files or the GREs of our SDK 14 in this case. Remember that we installed the JDKs at this path /user/lib/jvm/ the JDK folder. So in this case, it's using the Java JDK 14 folder. that it has installed at this path. And here are all the GREs, which have the classes that we can use from that Java JDK. You can also see here external libs JDK14, and here you have the same packages from that JDK14, and inside each package you have the classes that we can use at our project. So this is one dependence. That's the only dependence we are using at this project, but when we use other dependencies, you see that we have many other dependencies here to see. And here you have the global libraries for the project, and you hear any problem or errors detected for that project. So these are the settings specific for this project, this current project that I'm renaming as IntelliJ Demo. Let me just go to the workspace and see if the folder has had the name changes. Nope. I'll just change it here directly, IntelliJ Demo. And of course it will disappear from here, but I can close it and then import it, not more project 1, but open workspace IntelliJ Demo. So now it's the same project, but now with the folder name updated to the new name of the project, which is IntelliJ Demo. Okay, I've changed the project name because we will start pushing the project and all the changes and commits to GitHub, so I wanted to put a more semantic name here. And actually this is how you can change the project name. You first change here at the project, then you change at the workspace, the folder name, and then you simply open it here through the new name of that same project. So these are the basic menu options you have at IntelliJ. And now we will start seeing how you can search for classes, files, or even specific chars or strings inside your code, and also how you can see the hierarchy of the classes and the methods, and also very useful where inside the code, for example, a method or a class is being used. So the first one is search everywhere. Here at the editor main shortcuts, you can see as the first one here, search everywhere, and the shortcut is a double shift. You press shift 2 times, but I'll show you here at the menu. You can find it at navigate, search everywhere. So here you have the tab options for searching at all the project, for searching only classes, for searching only files, or symbols or actions. Actions are the menu options. Every submenu or every menu option is an action at IntelliJ. So if you select here actions and for example run, it will show the actions with the run name on it. For example, the run, and you just select here and it will execute that action as I've already shown you before. You have the search for symbols, the search for files, and the search for classes. But let's use the search of all these four by selecting here the All tab, and let's search, for example, for client. When you search for client using the All tab here, it first shows the classes, which is what we want. So there's a client class at the con.danielpm1982.domain folder, and we can go to that class only by pressing here. It also searches for the files, for the symbols, and for the actions which have the client name on it. But what we wanted was the class client, so here it is. Just double click it and it goes to the client class. So our project is a very simple one. Of course, you wouldn't need that to find your client class, but in case you have a real project with hundreds or thousands of classes, it's pretty useful for you to find any class. And also for finding, you don't have to put the entire word or string expression. You just have, for example, to put the initial letters of the words that compose the name of that class. For example, for looking for the order item, you could just search for O and I, which would find these two vowels or letters inside the order item name. So for example, if you search for OI, it will find the order item and specifically the O and I vowels at its name. So also you just click on it and it will go to the found class. Let's suppose we wanted to search for this entity relationship model. You can use the shortcut double shift, and if you search here with the Alt tab or with the Files tab selected and you search for ERM or E, it will find the erm.png file inside the images folder at the base folder of our project. The base folder is IntelliJ IDEA-demo, and inside that directly you will have the images folder with the file erm.png inside. So just click on it and it will open. So this is the ERM file. We could also look for relational model file and so on. So this is the search everywhere action. But we have a still better action or option to search things on our projects, which other than search for classes, files, symbols, and actions, it can also search for specific strings or expressions inside the whole code of each class and not only the classes themselves. So let's suppose you wanted to find a string name inside a certain class that you didn't know which one it would be. You can use, instead of the search everywhere, you can use the find in path action, and that find in path action would search on each path you selected. For example, if you select here the source src folder and you select find in path with the right button, or you could select here add edit find in path. You can find, and you also have the other option to find and replace whatever expression you have. So just select here find in path, and now you can search for not only a class or file or symbol or action names, but you can search for any expression or regular expression within the whole project. If you select here the in project tab, or you can search for the module In this case we have only one module, which is the IntelliDemo module, or the directory, and it will be the directory that's selected here at the project structure. For example, we selected the src folder, so it will search inside that directory src for any expression we put here. Or you could select a specific scope for searching for that expression. But let's search here on the directory. So we will search all the files here inside src folder for a certain expression. So for example, we could search for a method name, for example, print all. And here you have all the occurrences inside any file inside that selected directory of print all. So here we have the print all calling from the main method, and you also have the method name print all at the definition of that print all method also inside the main class. So you just also have to click on it. Actually, it gives you here a preview. This one is the print all calling of the print all method, which is here. And if you select here the other one, it goes the preview to the 36th line. In this case, it's inside the same class. If it were not, it would go to the other class with the print all method definition. And if you click 2 times, it will go to the class and to the place where that print all occurrence has been found. We could also search for, instead of a method name or a client name, we could search for a specific expression. For example, let's click again, source, find in path, and the expression now is hello world. And here it has found one single occurrence of this expression, which is at the definition of the constant hello. Here is the preview. So if you want, go there, you just click twice, and here it is. So it's very powerful to search for anything inside IntelliJ by using either the search everywhere action or mainly the find in path. If you want to search all the, you can use the find in path here at the base folder of the project, or you could just select here the tab in project instead of directory. So the result in this case is also the same, but in a real big project it would be very useful to find any expression, and you can set the expression you want to search for, either the name of it or any regular expression, and for searching, that's it. So these are the two main actions or commands from IntelliJ that turns available the search of string terms inside your project. The search everywhere or the find in path. And now let me show you 4 other actions that are pretty useful for showing you the hierarchy of the structure and the usage of any method or class inside your project. So the first one is file structure, and for using that you open a file, and at the file content you select here navigate and look for file structure. So at the file structure it shows the file, and inside that file it shows you all the methods. For example, the main method, the populate method, the print all method, and also it gives you the constants and the eventual fields of that file. You can also select here inherited members, and it will show you all the inherited methods from object. The class main only inherits from object, so the methods it will show as inherited members will be the methods from the object class. The clone, equals, finalize, get class, the equals, and hash code we can override, the notify and notify all for the threads, the toString, which we generally also override, and the wait also for thread management. And you can also select here for showing all anonymous classes you might have inside that class. In the case of our main class, we don't have any nested class, but inside any Java class you can have nested classes, and those nested classes can be static or non-static, and those non-static, also called inner classes, can be local classes if they are defined inside with a identifying name, or that inner class can be an anonymous inner class if it's simply passed or used as an argument inside a method at the parameter place. So anonymous classes, or specifically anonymous classes, implementation of anonymous interfaces are very used. For example, at graphical user interfaces applications, or at streamings as lambdas. Lambdas are the implementation of anonymous interfaces through anonymous classes, and you can show any anonymous class or any lambda inside your code. For example, at the printall method, we have a lambda of the predicate type with item types of type order item. And that's for the filter operator of the streaming we used to iterate over the items from the order item list. So if you want to go to that predicate lambda, you just click here and it will go to that lambda expression. Instead of this lambda, we could use an equivalent inner anonymous class as an implementation of the predicate anonymous interface as an argument for filter, and then it would have found that when we selected here the anonymous classes. So either you can search for anonymous classes or you can search for the equivalent lambdas. So this is the file structure action, and you can find it at the navigate menu. And of course you have to be inside a class for it to work. Another way you can have the structure of a class is by, instead of file structure, selecting the call hierarchy. And for that, let me go here to the main and select a more inner method, for example the printall method, which is called by the main method. So we can put the caret or the cursor on it and select here navigate, call hierarchy, and it will show the hierarchy of that method here on the right side at the hierarchy tab. And you can see that the printall method from the main class is called from the main method from the main class. So here you have all the colors of the printall method. In our case, we have just one method calling that other inner method. But of course, in a real project, if you have a class with a method, especially helper classes, that will be called from many other places inside the project, and you would have here a list of each and every place or method with the class of that method from which that other method would be called from. Another better action we have is the find usages. And for using that, we also place our cursor or caret over a certain method or over a class. Now let's put it over a class, for example client. And now let's select here edit, find usages, and find usages again. And here you have down below the usages for that client class. For example, that client class is called from the other class. As a field declaration, we have only one usage. As a local variable declaration, we have 4 usages. For example, at the equals method, we use the client class here. If you want to go to the place, you just select twice here and it go to the place of the code where that class is being used. We also have 2 usages as a method parameter, 1 usage as a method return type at the get client from the other, 3 usages at new instance creation because we create 3 clients, 1 usage as a cast target type at the equals method. We are casting this object type with a client type, and 1 usage in import. So at the main class we have the import of that client class. So these are all the usages, in total 13 usages for that class client we selected before selecting the action from the menu edit, find usages, and find usages again. And we can also do that for methods. So let me go here to client. Let me see the usages for the toString method of the client object. So you just select the method and you go here again, edit, find usages in file or find usages. Let's select the find usages again. So for the toString of the client class, IntelliJ has found 29 usages, and it also separates that inside categories of use type. So unclassified usage, it has 14 usages, and usage in string constant, it has found 15 usages. So you can search for usages both for clients or for methods or even for files. But we're not using at our code the file names we have here, so it won't find the files. For example, I selected the PNG file for the entity relationship model, and I'll try to find usages for that, and it won't find any usage for that file. No usages found in all places. And neither for this other PNG file of our relational model. If we want to find the usages, for example, for a certain dependency GRE, for example, for the time package of the Java JDK 14, we would select here. We can select only the time package or a class inside it. For example, we've used the local date and the local time, so let's try to find the usage for this local time class from the JAVAs from the JDK 14 we have as the single dependency as at this project. So you just select the local time class, go to edit, find usages, and here it's found 9 usages for that local time class, 3 for a class status member access, when we set here as the argument, and for that we use the class and the now static method for returning an instance of local time. Here we are searching for the usages of local time class. So here it's found 3 usages when we got the instances using the now static method for that class. It's also found 1 field declaration usage when we declare the time field at the other class. It's also found 2 usages as a method parameter declaration, 1 usage as a method return type, and 2 usages as a usage in the imports. So you can find the usages of pretty much every file type or class or method or any other file you want inside the whole project structure, which is pretty useful. And now the last action I wanted to show you is the method hierarchy. And for that, you gotta select any overridden method inside a class that implements the method from a higher hierarchy class. For example, let's go to any of these domain classes, to string or equals or hash code. Let's use here the hash code. As you can see here, hash code is an overriding of the hash code method from object. Every class inherits from object, so we can override any object from the object class. And here we are overriding the hash code. So we have the local hash code for this client class, and we will have the hash code from the object itself, the original hash code. So if we click on hash code, we can view the hierarchy for that method by selecting here navigate method hierarchy. And here we have that hashcode method is implemented here at the client, overriding the same hashcode method from the object class. Okay, so that's it for searching for elements inside your project, and for searching also for the usages or for the hierarchy of them inside that project. You can choose whatever action you find most useful for your particular case, but that's the 4 main actions we have, and they are pretty powerful and efficient in searching for those components and also for showing the hierarchy and the usage of those components by all other elements inside your project. And now we have 3 actually very important things to see, which are how you can create tests for your classes or for your projects and run that tests. For example, unitary tests or integrating tests. Of course, I'm not showing you all the JUnit 5, for example, syntax for that. I'm just showing you where and how to create those tests using IntelliJ. Later, I'll show you how to debug either the errors found at your tests or your main code, even without test files. And finally, we'll see how to use a version control system and integrate it with IntelliJ, specifically the Git and GitHub version control systems.